Thank you everyone for coming. My name is Daiz Sondag. I am representative of SAF at Oregon State University. And with Fish and Wildlife Society and Oregon SAF, we have partnered together to create another seminar for students to be prepared for conferences, particularly in the realms of forestry and natural resources and fish and wildlife. So without further ado, let's get started. Missing my awesome animation on here. What is the elevator pitch? Going to LinkedIn, because I think they had a pretty solid answer. An elevator pitch is a brief way to introduce yourself, relay your point, and connect with someone. It should last about as long as an average elevator ride, which is around 30 seconds. So while conference meetings are a little intimidating to some people, I just like to heighten that kind of sense of nervousness by imagining myself stuck in an elevator with around 3 or 4 professionals who I admire and trust. And that's what you should probably do too. But in order to have a sufficient elevator pitch, you will need key components. You will need your name, your majors or in class level, especially if you are a student attending a conference with other students, your graduation year, relevant experience, future career interests, and above all, the purpose of your attendance. Feel free to take a seat. So, relevant experience and context, you're gonna wanna really tailor your experience like you would on a resume. I'm not gonna go tell someone I'm looking up to in the realm of forestry that I work at a burger joint, because it's not really relevant. I will tell them, however, that I have done classwork out in the field. I have experience and prescribed fire preparedness, and that I have actual forestry related experience. Consider who you're talking with, and if you have experience in your field. A lot of people struggle with finding common ground when you don't meet with a professional in your field of interest. But the best way to find that kind of common ground is to ask about what they do, and there's a good chance that you've done something similar, such as taking a class, projects, volunteer service, that you can kind of connect on and grow more in that conversation. What not to include? I feel like it's always pretty simple. Jargon and filler words, and of course, some dreaded conversation fillers. And I'll tell you a little story about right now, because professionals make this mistake all the time. This is not a student exclusive thing. I once got a call back for someone that I was interviewing for an internship with. And he used the word so many times in the voicemail he left me, I couldn't make out what he said. I even did a speech to text translation just to see what he did. And I'm pretty sure he said 3 times every sentence. So mistakes happen, but you want to like practice your language beforehand, making sure that you are able to clearly communicate what you want to talk about. Excessive detail, industry-specific language. It's one thing to show that you're knowledgeable about a field that you're involved in, but not everyone is going to know exactly what you're talking about. And that can lead to some confusion, and sometimes it makes you look a little pompous. So right, if you don't need to be super excessive with what you do, but just try and get the basics out so you can get some common ground. Non-relevant work experience, like I said, if you have a job or experience that is outside the realms of forestry and our fish and wildlife, maybe keep that for another conversation where you're having more of a personal kind of one-to-one and less of a networking experience. Negative experiences and any kind of negative employers that you have. Leave the gossiping and complaining at home, please. This is a place where you want to have a positive impact on others, where others can see you as a positive person in your field. And the best way to kind of ruin that image is if you start going off about what you went through and negative experiences in the past. And it doesn't leave a great taste in other people's mouth. In the same with downplaying or having really insecure language, I get it, conferences are very intimidating. However, when you downplay yourself, it's going to leave that lasting impression that you don't feel like you're adequate enough to be at that conference. Really, you're at that conference because you want to, you need to, and you're gonna do your best as you can to be there. Hobbies, it depends. I sometimes will share a hobby of mine if I feel like it's relevant or appropriate for the conversation. I wouldn't include it in an elevator pitch where I have probably 30 seconds or less to introduce myself, mainly because I want to focus on having a professional conversation. And I don't need a hobby to act as a hook in order for someone to be interested in me. And of course, I don't have any experience because that's not true. You do. You're a student here or wherever you are, and you have done classes, potentially research or assisted with research. You have multiple transferable soft skills and have likely been involved in club or community projects that can easily become topics of interest that you can share and talk about. So it doesn't have to be defined work experience that you need to talk about. It could literally be so much more outside of the academic and professional field. But above all, what goals and aspirations do you have and how do you plan to achieve them? That is what your partner's takeaway should be from your pitch. This is the main objective you should be accomplishing. And anything else should only be supporting this goal. So on to the interactive activity. I'm going to give you 2 to 3 minutes to come up with your own personal pitch. If you're here in person, use your note card to record key details. After 2 or 3 minutes, you're going to find a partner and exchange pitches, give feedback on the duration, word choice, personal details, and if more or less is needed. And with that feedback, make 1 to 3 changes. I don't care if your pitch is perfect. I don't care if you perfected it in the past. Make 1 to 3 changes and then switch partners 2 times. How we feel? Ready? Go. Yes. Yeah, of course.
Oh my gosh. Yes, I forgot to. I'm so foolish. I forgot to give you your 6 note cards.
And those in the virtual audience, after 3 minutes, I'll call on each of you personally to give a response.
Got it.
Transitions are so good.
Bastard. I'm gonna interrupt him.
All right. Find a partner, exchange your elevator pitches, make 1 to 2 changes or 3 changes, and then switch again. Even if you're not finished right now, I want y'all to get up, mingle, find someone, and I will personally talk with people in the audience virtually.
Are we exchanging cards or are we giving each other the pitches?
You can do both.
Okay.
You can do both.
Let's see.
All right, people in the audience. Noah, would you like to go first?
Yeah, so Daiz, am I just like giving my elevator pitch now, or am I just saying like my key?
Yeah, you just give your pitch now.
Okay. Hi, my name is Noah. Nice to meet you. I probably should say my actual full name. Hi, my name is Noah Hill. Nice to meet you. I'm a 3rd-year forestry student looking to get getting my GIS certification and getting a business minor. I currently work at the research forest with Steve Pilkington, and I've been working there since last year. Is that too short? I don't know what else to add to that.
I think it's pretty good so far. Would anyone like to add on to that? Or, well, I suppose we're targeting you, Ethan. But I would like to say, good on catching that you didn't use your first name in the initial introduction. A lot of older forestry and natural resource professionals do appreciate that you use your first name, since that kind of eliminates confusion when you're meeting so many people that might share your first name. Overall, pretty good. I like how you explained your work studies right now. You named Steve Pilkington, which is great because he's rather well known in this certain community. So, Ethan, would you have anything to add on to that?
Not really. I think that was a pretty good starting pitch. Of course, room to improve, but I think we all can say that about ourselves. Pretty good.
Daiz, when would you say is like an appropriate time to like hand a business card if we had one?
I will get to that near the end of the seminar.
Awesome.
So hold on to that question. Promise it's a good question. So, and I know last seminar we did talk about that briefly. So it's definitely a great concept.
It's mainly like that's a nice place to put it.
Ethan, actually, yeah, Ethan, would you like to give yours really quick?
As well as
Yes.
forestry education.
Hello, my name is Ethan Ross. I am a 1st-year master's seeking student pursuing my MS in environmental science. I have a lot of experience related to natural resources field, especially in the realm of stakeholder relations and engagement, to effectively manage a large amount of stakeholders. I also possess experience in the quantitative tools used in natural resource management, such as GIS, statistical analysis, and others. And I'm really looking to pursue a position in a public natural resource management agency managing forest lands for all the benefits they provide. I'm here today to make connections in the field and get my name out there.
It's kind of hard to get.
That was a terrible ending. I know that was a really weak ending, but I kind of
No. I actually think that was actually really good. I like the use of big words. Like, not saying that sounds smart, but I mean the big quantitative. That honestly, I heard that. I'm like, okay, that makes you sound smart. So that's good. I'm gonna say with GIS. I don't know. Maybe just because I'm so used to telling people that I'm doing GIS and they don't really. I'm kind of thinking that even for myself. I don't think people know what GIS is all the time, which like is crazy to think about. But I've heard people that I say GIS and they're like, "What is that?" So I'm not too sure. I like. Okay, so the big words was good. Okay, I can't give you anything to critique on because I think everything was good. The use of big words was good. The fact that you say what you wanted to do, because that's good. I can't think of anything to critique you on. I think that was good. Use of big words was good. What you want to do, what you've currently done, and I can't think of really anything else. I mean, unless I always throw that I work for Steve Wilkerson just because he's, as Dave said, he's known. So if you like know anyone that works in like
Where it's a PhD student.
OSU extension or like anyone who's known in the community, maybe that's like something you can throw out. I don't know. Who have you worked? Have you worked under like any big companies or worked with any like big researchers?
Yeah.
Besides like faculty at OSU,
Them or
no, but
That
I guess my faculty member would be a pretty well-known researcher, I guess. I don't know.
I mean,
yeah, sure.
which fact? I mean, it could depend on like which faculty member. Because
Me too.
the other thing about it is a lot of the faculty members will be there as the OSU Extension Service people. So that might be a good thing to mention. Just people they've worked under.
Oh, okay.
I
That's what I think.
would work as a field biologist, probably one of
Yeah,
the
thank you for that feedback. I really appreciate that.
doing field biology.
I don't know. I'll share my own thoughts. Ethan, I do agree. I think you being very precise about what you do, especially if GIS is definitely shows that you're very knowledgeable about it, that you use it a lot. Just be prepared to clearly explain what that means to people. Like Noah said, don't even know what GIS is, or maybe they're even familiar with it and they just don't know all that you might have like mentioned. So just be prepared to like explain, but you definitely like hit all the points.
I got your little.
Sorry if it's a little loud over here. You clearly explained what you're doing, what you've done. You made your purpose known, which I love. So overall, great pitch. Make some minor tweaks here and there, so that way you can lead up to having a conversation where you're kind of both starting off on the same ground. But overall, very good.
All right, thank you for the feedback, guys. I really appreciate that.
Previously at Cal Poly, I had some experience using ArcGIS measuring.
All right. I'm gonna talk with another person. Noah, how do you feel about revising your elevator pitch
Really valuable.
and trying to hit more of those details I mentioned before, like stating your purpose and what you
Yeah.
want to be out of the conference?
Doing undergraduate
So-
research.
Yeah, I'll do that. I
Yeah.
just got home, so I can actually write stuff down now. So yeah, I'll do that.
Under one of the professors for a restoration project up north. In the summer, I'm hoping to get an internship in that work technician. That's all I
Cool.
have.
Couple of notes. I would go down on detail about your GIS experience. Definitely agree with that.
Yeah.
But use less detail and just summarize it more. That you have experience using GIS in the location. That's great.
Yeah.
And then they'll probably ask you more about that, and then that's where you can go into the detail on it. What else? Oh, I would also add in your reason for being at the conference.
Oh, is this for
People do like to. It is. I
Okay.
mean, so if you're at a conference or if you're at a networking
That's like an
event, then you
interview.
can. It can be. But yeah, if you're at an event, then I would add in like why you're there, what you're doing, what you seek from it. So yeah, if you're like using this as like
current
or like an interview thing,
Yeah.
then you would say like how you your like mission, or not your mission, but how your career aligns with the company's mission or something like that. That caters it more directly to that situation. Other than that,
Like in
that was
my
great.
case.
Yeah.
So,
I don't think I said anything I wrote down, unfortunately. Also, I mean, it's completely off topic. I'm kind of off topic. I signed up. Study for I've been in a meeting yet.
Yeah.
Are they Thursdays?
Tuesdays.
And then being more
Yeah,
selective.
5:30. So next Tuesday we have a meeting. This is separate. It's just like a
Okay.
seminar
The
thing.
best
But
way to
yeah,
fake
every other week,
confidence is to
next
make
week,
it. Like
is
one
the
knowing.
general meeting.
That's what younger guy. The best way to make confidence is to just
Actually, we
pretend
might
like
not have
you're
one next week because that's the conference. So then 2 weeks.
And I was gonna ask as well.
I
I
really
saw
got
on your
it.
email.
But I lied.
I signed up for a
When
conference.
did you-
There's like 16 spots available.
Was it the PNW one?
Yes.
Yeah. That's the
I don't even know
leadership
if I
conference.
qualify for that.
That's a question for Hunter and the projected there. So
Okay, should I say
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that?
yeah. No, you're good. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a great one. I went to it last year.
I'd love to get feedback, but I really don't have anything for you.
No, that's
I thought you were really good.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I think I talk a little too fast. I'm trying to work on it.
What's your thoughts on, I have a previous experience. I did 4-H growing up. I don't know if that like really fully pertains to my resume. I talked to Nate Scott about it. He's like, that's great to
I
add to
think
your resume,
so.
but I don't know if that really translates to elevator.
I think
pitch.
especially because like forestry and wildlife, like those fields, like
Yeah.
they tend to be more rural, and people appreciate
No,
like
I said the.
Getting
the
involved
work
in
that
those programs.
comes
So
from
it's
4-H.
something
Oh,
worth
and,
mentioning.
yeah,
I think it could be. It depends on who you're talking to,
Yeah.
but
I
know,
like.
if you don't have a lot of other things to mention, then
I feel like that's why I say like most of
my.
my leadership positions have come from.
And
throughout
did
the
you do
years.
any sort of like
Like,
forestry
I-
thing in
like,
that,
more
like a
specific.
project or like?
I would say so. Like the closest thing to forestry I've gotten is like.
How are things on the virtual end? Do you want to give any updates? Fair to revise?
It could be worth
And
mentioning.
then
I figured I'd say those four if they ask.
Yeah,
some
if they ask
experience,
more
I'd bring
about-
back.
That would be good, yeah.
What I had
Yeah,
done.
great.
in 1 or 2
That's
years.
great.
Nice conversation.
My future.
How do you feel? I'll make it a good question.
Yeah.
It was nice to meet you. What was your name again?
I'm Nathan.
Nathan. Nice to meet you. Tatiana.
Tatiana,
Yeah.
nice to meet you.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. All right, Nathan, are you part of SAF or Fish and Wildlife?
I just joined like yesterday,
Which one?
both.
Nice.
Fish and wildlife representative.
I'm a forestry major, I don't know if you ever heard, and I also just transferred here.
Oh, wow.
So I'm like still figuring out like cannabis and what
Yeah.
it has to offer. But every opportunity I see, I try to take it out, so.
Very cool. Yeah, stick around if you're here when it ends. We'll give you more of an orientation if needed.
Next
appreciate that.
SAF general meeting, not next week
Not
because
next
it's
week.
conference, right? So it'd be not.
The week after that, but on a Wednesday,
Oh, it's on a Wednesday. I did not know
because
that.
other clubs are doing the even.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Oh, this is-
that was some really cool discussion. Thank you everyone for participating. And I saw some, not just discussion, but great feedback, going off of like details, having actual networking conversations you would have in a conference. I even saw some handshakes over here. It was awesome. I'm gonna ask just general audience, what was something about your pitch you realized that you were really missing out or didn't really consider when making it? It's a vague question. Yes.
The two I added was, so I talked about the main two positions that I've had or we have, which is SAF chair, and then my last job is an assistant forest manager.
Mhm.
But I kind of, for the assistant forest manager position, I wanted to add in a couple more like responsibilities or different areas, or just a little bit of like, hey, GIS, or hey, timber cruising, or logging management or something. Because I feel like in the elevator pitch, if you can make it concise, you want as many small things for the professional to grab onto that they relate to, and that they can then say, oh, I knew about that. And then I also just wanted to add some at the end prompt interaction. It's good not just to leave off on like, and that's me.
We're getting to that.
Okay.
We're getting to that.
Okay,
Absolutely.
sorry.
Great point. Yeah, from the virtual end, participants online, one realized that he was missing out his entire like purpose of being at the conference. And I noticed this a few times in the past where people would introduce themselves and then they wouldn't really state why they were there at the conference. So then that would usually prompt the professional to ask, what are you doing here? Are you with your chapter or your club? And it shouldn't really have to be up to the professional to get that part going. It should be up to you to state your intentions, your goal, and what you're going to get out of this conference. So if you are going to be looking for seasonal work and internship at a conference, you might want to end on a note that says, I'm here looking for internships or seasonal work. And with that, we're going to go into after the pitch. Don't let the conversation stale. I've done this before. I've seen it happen every time. And it's natural. People are not always going to have the perfect conversation right away. There's going to be sometimes that little brief awkward silence between you as you're sitting around the table with 5 other professionals. And it's fine. If your partner doesn't offer any questions or information to bounce off of, lead with a transition question, like Hunter said. And these are some really basic ones. And you've probably seen these quite a few times if you have practiced for interviews, mock interviews, job applications and whatnot. But simple things like, what is your occupation? How long have you worked with blank? What has your career path looked up to this point? People love this question, by the way. They love it. I promise. One of my personal favorites is, what do you think your job or field of work will look like in 5, 10, 20 years? That offers a little chance for a good conversation filler where the professional can talk more about how they introspect into their own life and field. And that way you get your own insight on what this field might look like from the professional's point of view. How has your experience here at the conference that you're at been? Very basic question, I will admit that, but it's a helpful little icebreaker occasionally. And number 5, have you been to other conferences like this one, and for what organizations? So obviously, this seminar has been built for preparation for a joint conference meeting where 2 not so different, but rather different fields of work, fish and wildlife, forestry, natural resources, are coming together. We're seeing a huge blend of professionals at this conference, and you will see this blend of variety of professionals at any conference you go to because it's a networking event. But this kind of helps lead into like, what experience do you have going to events like these? Should I be looking myself into other events that might also benefit me, like this one? And a little going off, if you're in a typical scenario where you're attending a seminar or presentation together, this will be very, very common where you have keynote speakers talking about certain research or upcoming events. You can go off of what the speaker said. I thought this point made by whoever was speaking was really interesting. What do you think about it? Or has their company or organization worked with blank before? And that's a very easier way to start a common ground when you have something else to talk about besides yourself. But overall, some conferences will have opportunities where you get to actually speak to a large number of professionals within a short amount of time. This is sometimes called a World Cafe style, where there's usually an MC that will organize to make sure that you're directly speaking to professionals, which is very beneficial. But you only get roughly 10 to 20 minutes to share a table or seating area with a few professionals before having to switch and connect with an entirely new group. This is not a new thing. This has been around for quite a while, and it's to help maximize how many people you meet in a short amount of time that you have there. However, realistically, you might only have 2 to 5 minutes to actually present yourself and make a lasting impression. It's intimidating, yes, because impressions do matter, and you will likely be seeing these people in your field in the future. I've run into so many people from across the country over and over again because we go to the same events. So the impression does matter. This will be shorter than the last activity, I promise, but I want you to write down some professionals you might propose to a professional, questions you might pose to a professional to keep an engaging conversation. And I want you to share at least one person, and then I want everyone here to provide a unique response on your own, so that way our responses don't overlap. Does that make sense, people on Zoom?
Yes.
Awesome. I'll give like 2 minutes max. 2 to 3 minutes.
Did you get any note cards, sir?
I'm okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. I'm assuming you all have at least one question. Hunter, would you like to go first?
So we share and then somebody responds to my question.
So what's a question that you personally would ask a professional, likely within your own field of interest, that would promote an engaging conversation, especially if you feel like a conversation might go stale or they lose interest?
I have one.
Hunter's going first.
Oh, sorry.
You're all good.
Tell me he's supposed to be steady, that's what he told me.
He's developing.
Mhm.
I always like to ask professionals about what aspects of their current job continue to make them excited in a way to do it, or what do they think they're getting out of it that grow them personally or professionally, or something like that. And if they're not feeling like they are, then the other response is just, well, why doesn't it feel like there's interest in it? And then that's then gets them thinking, and then they can just share what they think, and then you can share what you think about that, and it's a deep enough conversation, you can go a bunch of separate ways.
It's a very thorough answer, and I like that you had a follow-up question to that. People online, would you like me to repeat that so you can hear it, or can you hear it all right?
I heard it all right. I don't know about Ethan.
Yeah, I heard it well too.
All right, cool. I want to make sure that everyone can hear each other. Would you like to go next? Yeah.
Yeah, I wrote down a few questions. When you say one of them?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd say if I was trying to ask a professional question, I have two that are kind of similar, but what's a skill that is valuable but not often taught in school? And with that, you can always follow up in a multitude of different ways of if they talk about a skill that you may already have experience in, you can display that. If they talk about a skill that you don't have any experience in, you can ask ways to learn that skill and how they go about it. Another one I had was also experience wise, what's the most valuable experience that they had, internship, or even just if it was a research professor, what that was, what that looked like.
I like that. I like that you made it personal to you as a student, because, well, yes, you will gain skills in your professional life. You can also start gaining skills now that may not be taught in the classroom. Thank you.
Mine was, what might you suggest for me after going to my first conference? What kind of path would you take after?
Right. Very cool.
I like to ask how they got into the specific niche of their career that they did, and how they got there. Did they get a master's degree? Did they get a PhD? Was it a certain job or internship that led them into their profession or even their agency?
Very cool.
I like to ask professionals why they like a particular study system or habitat that they like. So if someone's a habitat biologist in Eastern Oregon, I would ask them what specifically about that excites them, and for more real specialized folks, why are they well, I'm a wildlife person for context. I would say, why do you like to study populations? Or why do you like to study these kinds of populations as opposed to other things? And how did you know that you liked it?
Very cool. All right, Noah, would you like to go?
Yes, and now hearing everyone else's, I'm not too sure. This is me just wanting to know about them, just kind of. So I just said, where do they grow up? It's kind of just where are they from? Because then I have my follow-up, because I say, if they're from Oregon, I would want to ask if they've had some family connection with forestry, or if they're the first in their family. And then I always ask if they're from somewhere else, what brought them to Oregon for forestry. Because I'm just thinking from my mentor for OSAF, I found out that she's from Vermont, and I wanted to ask her, what brought you from Vermont all the way to the West Coast? And I think that just kind of adds to the conversation.
I think that's a great question. Going from that barrier of asking about a personal life to how it interacts with their professional life is really good, and it gives you some nice insight into that person. And you brought a great example about how your mentor was originally from Vermont, but chose Oregon, the other side of the country, to come to. And that gives you a good insight on why they would chose to pursue forestry here rather than somewhere else.
Also, I will say it was kind of interesting because I found out that we did have more of a connection. And sorry, I was saying that earlier. She is from southern Pennsylvania, so she's from Appalachia, and I mentioned that my family's from Appalachia as well. And then she went to University of Vermont, and my grandma went to just happen. So it's one of those things where it was something that easily I could find a connection to like add on to the conversation.
Very cool. I'm really glad that you had that connection there. All right, Ethan, would you like to share yours?
Yes. I would be really interested to learn what have been some of the most helpful lessons that the professional has learned in their career, with an emphasis on the word helpful, to really kind of elicit that more anecdotal response instead of like a, this hard skill got me here because it was helpful, kind of like more advice maybe, or like tips, kind of more personal tips they could give. Like, what are some of those been that has really kind of gotten them to where they are, and how has that been helpful and impactful?
Very nice. Thank you. I already shared mine, which is where I like to gain insight into professionals' view of what their field of work is going to look like X years into the future. Because realistically, I, as a student and very young professional, am not going to go straight into my dream job right out of graduation. I'm going to have to build myself up to that level, and it will take years occasionally and very regularly. So that way I like to look into the future. Where is this kind of field heading towards? What are the trajectories of how well supported this field is? Are we going to see a higher demand for this? Are we going to see a lower demand? Do we predict that this field is going to go extinct? Likely not, but you never know. So that's always just been my go-to question.
Was that number 3, like on the previous set of slides?
Was on
that
there.
Was a very good question.
It was.
Number 3 there?
Number 3.
Yes. And so what I thought about that is, and maybe this is what you incorporated in yours, is what skills or how that job will be done in the future. This, changing technology. Before, like I used to draw maps on Mylar, and now you can just GIS and create a map, pop it out. And so there's tools that are museum pieces now. So yeah, that's a great question, I think, and asking how you think that job will be done, what skill, not necessarily what skills, but what tools. And so if you don't have the tools, I think it's a great question.
Well, thank you. And I really liked your feedback on that, where it's not just the field itself that's evolving, it's our tools, how we navigate it, what experience, what skills do we need to progress in it. So thank you.
Yeah, LiDAR is another great example. We can do so much with LiDAR. We would spend days out in the field doing profiles or mapping, and now you can just do LiDAR and it pops right up.
Oh yeah.
Good question.
It's a very slow transitions. Okay. So kind of diverging a little, I wanted to go more into the building confidence side, because while you can be very knowledgeable, you can be very prepared for what you want to say and how to navigate conversation, the key thing is going to be confidence. And people sometimes know just by having a conversation with you that you're not very confident in what you're saying or how to navigate that conversation. So a few things just to remember, because gaining confidence is not going to be uniform for everyone. It's not an interview. You might be there at a conference to get an internship, a job, look for something after graduation, but ultimately you're not having a one-on-one interview. You're not going to get a job offer or a job declined the next day, it's gonna be fine. Because there's nothing truly at stake here. And I say that loosely, but I also mean it. And the way that I interpret this is that you will have chances in the future to make up for a mistake that you've done and to show that you've grown as a student or professional, and that you can always put your best self forward, no matter how much experience you've done. Fun facts about these conferences is that they're overwhelming and they're long and they last for days. Take breaks as needed. It's nothing wrong if you need to step out of the room during a networking event, grab some air, maybe take an hour off if needed. Especially beneficial if you're with a group of people like other students where they can check in on you and tell you that, hey, you're looking stressed, take a breather. So yeah, like I said, if you mess up on an introduction or your elevator pitch, something fumbles, it's fine. There's always so many other people you can talk to. There will be hundreds of people likely at these conferences. And the ones that we are preparing ourselves for is relatively small in comparison to larger regional, national level, international level kinds of conferences where they can be up to thousands of people in one building. So find other people you can talk to if needed, but don't try to dwell or hold yourself back because of a little error that you made. But I will say, just like again, to really make sure that you're building yourself up, avoid filler words, crud language, and any kind of self-degrading speech. The moment you start to put yourself down, your confidence is going to fly out the window, and people will take note of that.
What do you consider filler words?
Filler words? I would say when you want to talk about something that you're definitely interested in, but may not be always knowledgeable about. So we were talking a little bit online here with our elevator pitches at a student who is very well knowledgeable about what he does. And he used a lot of technical language in his introduction, which to me, I understood what he said, so it sounded great. However, to a person who may not always know what ArcGIS Pro is and how to create a fire progression map, they may not know what you're talking about. So, and as long as you know what you're talking about and you know how to clearly explain it, avoid the very technical, gritty language.
Okay, so it's more technical or detailed.
Yeah, I should say it's more like very detailed technical language than filler, but people often use that as filler when they don't know how to explain it properly.
Okay. Keep it simple.
Yes. And as always, sharing is caring. So we're going to help our fellow students out by writing 2 to 3 habits you practice to build up confidence when in a professional setting. And if you don't have any, think of a way that you can help out if you notice a fellow peer needing a hand. If you don't know what that means, say you're in a room with someone, you're doing great, you're getting off very smoothly of everyone you talk to. You look around and you see a fellow student kind of getting backed into a corner, being left out of the group. What are you going to do about it? So I'll give 2 to 3 minutes again. Does that sound good, people on Zoom?
Yes, sounds good.
Awesome.
Not you quoted bio. It is.
Would you like to participate?
I have mine right here.
I got it.
I hate both of those things.
I don't love it, but it's like some of the most relevant experience.
Right, and data analysis is the real unifier. I fear that I made up my elevator pitch. On the spot.
Yeah,
That's usually how it will happen.
yeah, because you have to cater it to, and sometimes you don't know who you're gonna talk to.
So if I wrote out the whole thing, I would just get stressed about it.
I don't have that like in front of me when I'm talking to people.
See, still.
Yeah, I usually like to just do bullet points where it was like, yeah, this is my name. This is when I'm graduating. My 3 details about me. Resume style.
I definitely always write out things and then like review that and then go completely the opposite way. And it always works out. So
Maybe it helps you review what you originally wrote down so that way you
yeah.
realize, oh, I actually don't need this. I can actually just do this.
Yeah, and just like collecting my thoughts through writing paragraphs is like how I work. I don't know.
Alrighty. Looks like most of us are done. This time I'll start on Zoom because I realized I accidentally skipped you guys in the last activity. Ethan, would you like to share anything?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I would say, I know this is so much easier, said than done, but really confidence is key. And I'm sure most of us are feeling just a little bit nervous when we're at these events where there's a bunch of professionals who have been in the field a lot longer than we are, but we are there for a reason, and that is to make ourselves known and kind of advance our goals. So really having confidence in that, I think, is just one of the biggest ways you can kind of ensure success. And now it certainly takes practice over time, but really just kind of developing those strategies early on. And kind of leading into that, when you're speaking to these professionals, really eye contact, I found, is one of the best ways to kind of establish that sort of connection and really show that you're serious about what you're doing, because eye contact does become difficult to maintain after a while. But if you can kind of hold that, then I've found that it really kind of shows that you're serious about what you're doing, and you mean what you say, and there's weight behind your words. So I guess overall, I would say just practice confidence, practice something natural at these events. There's certainly many ways to do that. So
I like that you say practice being natural, because it's a fun word to say. It's a fun sentence to say. It feels very contradictory. How do I practice being myself at just another location? And what the reality is that you're not going to act like yourself. You don't act like yourself in interviews. You don't act like yourself when you're applying for a job. You want to put your best foot forward. You want to sound so cool and so interesting. And you still do. But the thing is that you on your own are also interesting. So thank you so much, Ethan. Noah, you want to add something?
What I'm thinking, like my biggest thing is when I do think about a lot of these people, no matter how like seasoned they look in their profession, I always think they started from somewhere, and like at one point in their lives they were in our shoes. So it's not like they're a stranger to us sitting there like trying not to look like a nervous wreck, I guess to say. They've been in the exact same situation before.
Absolutely. And the reality is that they're still in that same situation many times.
Ooh, that is true.
I've met so many professionals that have reached out to me afterwards, because we would have a conversation about like how to navigate that kind of environment. And they said, yeah, I was really nervous being there. I've never been at a conference before as a professional, and I had a different set of expectations put upon me. But yeah, it's really good keeping that insight on like, yeah, these professionals, they're just fellow humans, fellow adults who are trying to network with me as well. It's a two-way street, and we're going to do our best in both worlds.
I also do want to note something that I do kind of think about for some of the like conferences that we've been to. I've been told, and I think Tatiana said it once, where foresters are known to be like infamously like having low social skills or like just bad social skills. So sometimes they might be nervous in front of us as well.
I've heard many times that communication is forestry's biggest boon.
That's right. Yes.
Absolutely. Would anyone like to volunteer?
I'll go.
yeah, I think part of confidence, what they said too, like speaking clearly. For me, it's helped a lot when I was younger, speaking slower than you think that you should. That often just start rambling really fast and they wouldn't catch everything that I was saying. And obviously like holding your head high, making eye contact. I think a big part of confidence is also listening to what the other person is saying. Having like a preset list of questions in your head can be good, but if they like give you an interesting response and you just completely skip what they said and just route to your next question, it doesn't always leave the best impression. And for the second half, I'm not for answering that right now.
No, it's really if like you're having trouble answering the first part, then you can move on to the second part.
Yeah, I said, speaking with professors here already helped me and helped me a lot last quarter out of college. And also like understanding if you like helping a peer that might need help, understanding who that peer is and like what their interests and skills are. Because if you find common ground with someone, you can just point them in the direction of that person that has the same common ground. So set them up for success.
Absolutely. And we actually went over that in our last seminar about how a peer can introduce you or you can introduce a peer to fellow professionals. So that way you both can ensure that you're doing well. Very cool. I'll take one or two more. Yeah.
Yeah, I, similar to what you said, inviting people in, if you're doing well, invite people into a conversation if you know there's common overlap, but with that, you need to know if you're inviting in your peer to have this conversation with a professional, that they're actually confident talking whatever anecdote you're going to give about them. So if I was inviting one of our tree managers or tree farmers into it, I want to know how familiar they are with the site. If they were new or something, they might not actually have that much to talk about. And you just said this person is really good at talking about the tree farm. And I am okay. And then also for me, feeling confident, being able to be relaxed and like, curious in conversations is, I like to look my best and feel my best. And part of that, like we've talked about, is rest. And one thing, when we went to the national convention, we normally go to conventions, we have the hotel linked to where we are, so we have space to decompress. And we didn't have that at, we were all in Colorado. It was just days after days after days of being on site. And it was very hard to be curious and listen to people when you are absolutely drained. And I feel like many students lost more hours being drained than if they would have just taken 1 hour to recoup themselves or just like, half an hour to regen. So that's something that's really important.
And I made that mistake on my first conference I went to. I was just very overwhelmed. Well, one, because it was at a casino, so already the environment was very different. But yeah, I just found it so hard to find a space where I can just stand away from other people and just have a moment to myself. And I probably lost a lot of time, like you said, standing in these groups of people, but not really contributing anything to the conversation, kind of just hanging around and slowly digesting everything I hear, but not remembering it. So absolutely. For time purposes, we are going to move on. So I don't want to keep you guys here. It's the wrong computer. But absolutely, we've mentioned this quite a few times already, and one or two of you have given your own experience, but finding mentorship is a super fun part about these conferences because people love being teachers. You see this so often. If you go to ask advice, just simple, plain advice from someone, they will be ecstatic to tell you everything they know about that subject. But having a close, engaged mentor to support you for your educational and professional journey is a very beneficial tool for you to achieve your goals, especially if you clearly communicate what you want to do. That often can overlap with what the professional might have encountered in the past or also wants to do. But the objective benefits, I should say, have usually been finding employment and research opportunities, exploring new fields of interest, being a professional reference, and many, many more. But a mentor can be in a lot of different ways. It can be a professional in your field, as it usually is. It can be a professional not in your field. It can be completely removed. It could be your professors, your coworkers, your TAs, it could be a fellow student, it could be a family member or relative. It takes a lot of different kind of pathways, and you'll usually have more than one. But these conferences are a great way to find and start budding that kind of relationship with professionals. Hopefully you find your field, but if you do it outside your field, you gain a lot more insight in what other people are doing. And I believe we actually will continue that conversation with an experience that Jayshawn had.
Whoopsie, sorry. I had the opportunity to meet someone at a conference specifically for raptor researchers in North Carolina this past October. And she's from Oregon. She lives up in Portland, and I was fortunate enough to meet her and have her, and we chatted a couple of times throughout the conference. I told her about some of my research with American kestrels, which is a small species of falcon, and she was super invested and interested in that, and as well as my other research efforts. And we just chatted about that, about her work. She traps raptors up in Portland for PDX and relocates them. And I had mentioned that I was in talking about some of my research, she offered to teach me how to do something that I wouldn't get to learn doing my specific project, which was trapping adult American kestrels, because there's a chance I might get to work with the babies in nest boxes, but I wouldn't have the chance to trap and handle live adult birds, which is a completely different experience since they fight back. And she offered to teach me how to set up those traps, which is a vital skill that I should learn in my career in raptor biology. And then she offered to let me band them, which is a very special opportunity, since bird banding, especially raptor banding, is very rare in the wildlife field in general. It's very hard to find someone in Oregon that has a permit that can band raptors, because it requires an additional permission. And through this connection, I was able to get her to offer to teach me. And I said, of course. And then the conference was a week long, very overwhelming, very tiring. I kept what she said in mind as we were connecting throughout that week. And then at the beginning of the term, I reached out to her and I said, in this email, because I had gotten her card, and I had said, hey, I'm Jayshawn. I'm a student at Oregon State. We met at the Raptor Research Conference in October. We talked about X, Y, and Z. I remember you offering to teach me about setting up these certain traps to catch this certain bird. Is that still something you're interested in? And I heard back nothing for 3 weeks, and I was like, okay, I'll reach back out to her. I did that today. Today, I got a response back from her, and she apologized for just missing my email because she's busy. She's got her full-time job with benefits. She has things to do. And I also miss emails, so it was nothing personal. And then she doubled down and said, hey, yeah, I am still interested. We might want to talk about permit stuff, since one of my permits is a little weird. But I'd love to meet with you on Saturday. Are you free? And I said, yes. So on Saturday, I have a meeting with this person that I would not have had the pleasure of meeting had I not gone to that conference. And I would have missed out on that opportunity if I had not reached out in the first place, because it's always the student's kind of thing to want to continue that relationship. But to not take the first defeat to not take the first response, like the first lack of response, as a total loss. One email that just doesn't go unresponded doesn't usually mean anything. And I've had to deal with that even with my own advisor, or he's just bad at responding to emails. So it taught me that you can always just reach out again. And it benefited me, since now I get to learn this super cool research technique to advance my own career. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you exchange contact information when you met at the conference?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I guess if I had a little bit more time to sort of get to know this person since I was there for 5 days or 6, I don't remember. But within our like first 2 or so conversations, I said, "Oh, can I get your email address so I can reach out to you in the winter? Or since I'm pretty busy this fall." Oh, I just asked that since she had brought up teaching me in the winter. I was like, okay, I'll double down. Let me like, can I get your email address? And I had my lovely business cards, which if you don't have them, you should make them. There's still time. You can get them made at Office Max for like $8 for no wait, 15 for 50. Custom made business cards at Office Max. But I gave her one of my business cards and she wrote, well, no, she gave me one of her business cards as well because she had one. And that's how I was able to get her contact information.
Okay. So what I've done at every conference I got to is that nearing the end of a conversation I would have with a professional, I would ask them for their business card because most of them, if not all of them, do. It was very rare for me to find someone who did not have a card on hand. And yes, trying not to take that lack of response as personal, I should say, is definitely hard because you have put a lot of effort into going to that conference, making a significant impression for yourself, and then afterwards you're met with silence and you feel like they've ghosted you. Chances are they're just very busy people, and as are you. So like Deshaun, keep reaching out. Don't feel bad if it's like an every 2-week interview. And you will likely get a response of some kind. But yeah, also having business cards for yourself is a really fun and unique way of setting you apart. I met very few students who would do that, but it's also a cool way for your like your partner in conversation to recognize you later on. I'm like, oh, I think they have their business cards still. But I will say though, it should be on you as a student to reach out to the professional. And it demonstrates a very good sense of responsibility and commitment to your professional journey when you do so.
Right, and especially in regards to like someone offering to meet up and show you something, a technique, or just to talk more. Everyone talks about, oh, we can do this, but you as a student taking the initiative to reach out for the first time, that lets the other person know, okay, they actually want this. This is something they're actually interested in. So then they'll want to give their time to explain things to you or to show you a field technique or whatever. But you have to put the initiative in first because the professional needs to know that you actually want to do it. It's the effort thing that counts.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing your experience.
I wanted to say one more thing about just even connecting, since this is the Oregon conference, you might run into OSU faculty there.
You will.
And exactly, I know that to be true as well. And there was a gentleman that peeped in this door for a hot second, and then I walked out after him because I met him. I've met him before. I met him at a symposium at OSU last year. We chatted there, and then I ran into him the next week or so at the conference, and we chit-chatted there. We chit-chatted both times, and he invited me out to his to be on his field crew in early summer of last year. So I ran into him for the first time since we just caught up. I asked him about some of his stuff. He asked me about some of my stuff, and we used the same skills that were talked about in this presentation to form that initial connection. Because now I just run into him, and now it's like, oh hey, how's it going? What's new? And I'm gonna run into him again at the conference this year, and he's gonna see one of my presentations. But that doesn't happen unless you as a student make the effort to introduce yourself to these professionals.
Absolutely. Within the realms of forestry, natural resources, and fish and wildlife, no matter how big you think these fields are, you will run into the same people time and time again. And you will never, even when you don't expect it, you're just gonna find the same exact people. And if you want to leave a good impression, leave one that makes sure that they recognize you later on. Because that way, that gets you much more better networking experience when you're already familiar with the people there, and what kind of environments. But yeah, I would like to take this time to do kind of general Q&A. This can be about anything we addressed here in this presentation, or it could just be about conference culture in general. I have gone to 3 conferences now, maybe, and just in the realms of forestry and natural resources. Planning to go to a lot more. I'm going to 2 next month alone. So I have some experience under my belt, at least I can say that confidently. But yeah.
And if you have some more wildlife specific advice, you can feel free to ask me, or you can just ask me anything, to be honest. I've been to 3 conferences and a couple of symposiums. And I've given presentations at a couple of these events. So I'm pretty confident in my ability to navigate professional settings.
I have a question.
How valuable in your elevator pitch would it be to include where you're from?
I would say,
Like, obviously I'm from out of state. So would that play any value, or should I just leave that out in general?
I think it can, especially if that's something you think can, like, you can reach out to make yourself set apart. And like, because if you have a reason for coming here to Oregon, they're likely going to want to know that reason. So I don't know, for me, I don't always say it because I'm from a lot of different places. I've moved a lot throughout my life. So it's hard for me to say like, oh yeah, I have a really secure connection to this one place in particular. So for me, I just like to include that I'm a student. If someone mentions that they worked or lived in somewhere I've also been in, I definitely like to say that, oh yeah, I lived there for X amount of years, because that's definitely a great way to find some common ground. Yeah.
I would say, like, it's okay to put it in if you want, but it's not going to make or break anything. And if nothing else, it'll come up in casual conversation.
Virtual members are also able to ask questions if wanted.
You've answered all the questions that I had.
I'm glad I at least answered them already.
Yeah, I agree with that. All questions have been answered. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for participating today. I'm so happy that we had a very engaging experience. Even if low turnout, that's fine. As long as someone gained something from this seminar, I'm very happy and very satisfied. So again, thank you for coming here today and for your time. This has been recorded and will be posted for other colleges in Oregon and other chapters to view and share and learn from. And I'm very happy to be part of this experience. All right.